Historian.
Hey everybody, Steve the Amateur Historian. And a few days back I had my very first adventure, if you can call it that, riding one of these e-scooters that you see all over Portland. There's various brands, there's Lime, there's Spin, there's Bird. I use the Lime ones because they're the only ones that you can actually see in my neighborhood. Like the other e-scooter groups, companies, they have one or two within a mile of my house, but there's always at least 15 Lime scooters near my place. So there were a few times I was going to use one, and then I would get to the scooter and it would be busted up. Somebody tampered with it, stole something out of it. Didn't work. So I finally got my first adventure, and as I'm showing you the video I captured of what was most of my adventure, this video picked up about, I don't know, maybe 15 minutes in to my exploration of sorts, and I'm just going to discuss, what it's like for those of you that haven't. I know a lot of people out there haven't used them. A lot of people maybe are considering using them or are 50-50, they're left in the air. And so I just want to discuss, what it was like, what my experience was like. It's really enjoyable. If you want a level 2 out of 10 adventure type scenario, they're fun to ride. I ended up riding another one the next day. Let's cover a lot of space. Part of it was I didn't want to walk that far, but another part of it was, hey, that was fun. But it's important to understand that these things are expensive. Not if you have a lot of money to throw around, but for what you get, these scooters are, in certain circumstances, they're more expensive than an Uber or a Lyft. They are, I believe the rides are currently 29 cents per minute. Now, it's important to understand, some busy, if you're riding them, along a busy intersection, which is where most bike lanes are in this city, you could find yourself waiting at, an intersection for almost a minute. I found myself in one situation having to turn around and pull a U-turn, and I played back the video. I was at this intersection trying to get across and then wrap around and go back for 5.5 minutes. So I spent almost $2 just at that intersection. So just know that going in, every, at 29 cents a minute, every 3.5 minutes, you're getting charged $1. At least that's with Lime. Again, that's the scooter I use. The prices, likely vary depending on which group you're using. So one of the first things I want to make abundantly clear, because I didn't see this happening, and this is probably only the case, or at least mostly only the case for people like me who have balance issues. I have borderline vertigo. I get shaky when I climb up on a ladder. But in terms of maintaining balance, I can't ice skate, I can't rollerblade, I can't roller skate, I can't skateboard, I can't do any of that stuff. That requires me to be on a thin blade or thin wheels. I fall over immediately. There's no hope. I've tried. So when you're riding one of these e-scooters, it's a little scooter with, you got this thin little platform to stand on, and I was a little weary at first getting on this little thing, but I got used to it pretty quick. It wasn't that bad. But because I am someone with, not great balance, I get shaky when, the whatever I'm standing on is thin and potentially unstable. I have to ride these e-scooters very stiffly. And because of that, I couldn't, one hand the handlebars. I had to keep my hands both firmly gripped on the handlebars at all times. I had to keep my feet firmly grounded on the board at all times, unless I was stopping. So because of this, I ended up waking up the following morning with so much pain. It was that kind of pain you get when you haven't used a muscle group a certain way for a very long time. You know that pain. You haven't gone out for a run in a while, and then you go out for like a 20-30 minute run, you wake up the next day and your legs are just shot. It was that kind of discomfort. And it was primarily because, one, I had to keep such a firm grip. I was constantly flexing my arm muscles and kind of flexing my leg muscles to keep my legs firmly down on the board. In addition to that, both my treks that I've taken on these Lime scooters, all two of them, have been in southeast and northeast Portland. Now, the roads are pretty beat up out here. That's an ongoing issue. So there were some stretches where literally it was like I was getting electroshock therapy, because you're just like the whole way. And even some of the nicer paved roads, you're still kind of gyrating on the concrete. So the whole ride, you're getting like this, shock, these jolts up through your legs from the board as as it's gyrating. You're getting these shocks up through your legs into your hips and in your arms. You're getting the shock through your arms all the way back through your shoulders. I woke up, my shoulder blades and my whole upper back were just aching like crazy. So part of that is obviously having never rode one of these before and having not experienced a venture like that. I've never ridden an e-scooter or a scooter like that before until recently. So I wanted to make that very clearly known. If you're someone like me who's a little shaky with your balance, and you get on one of those scooters and like you're doing okay on it, but you're also just kind of like you're holding firm and tight. This first venture, I did about a 40-minute ride going towards downtown, essentially, and then I had about a 40-minute ride coming back home. So I did about 80 minutes on one of these scooters, with about a 2.5 hour gap in between. So I did 80 minutes on this first trek, and I woke up just muscle soreness all the way through my arms, all the way up my legs. Pretty much my middle back and stomach were like the only areas that weren't sore. So if you're like that, realize, if you do a long enough ride, you're gonna be sore. If you do a shorter ride, like a 15-20 minute one, probably not so much. So next thing. Now, obviously, I believe bicyclists and or, people riding these e-scooters, I fully believe they have rights, in terms of being out on the streets. But that being said, God, that guy's car needs some work. That being said, I'm not one of these people that's going to force myself out in front of traffic and be like, you're going to, yield to me. I'm a bicyclist and I have rights, because the people that you're talking to have a massive piece of metal that they can kill you with. And have you ever heard of road rage? People do snap and do crazy things on the road. And also, Portland has horrible drivers. I know everybody in every major city says, oh, we have the worst drivers. Portland actually has like data to back it up about how bad the drivers are in this city. So I don't put my life at risk just to strike a blow for the bicyclists and the, scooter riders. That being said, I really found out, because Portland is considered a city with a very high, we're regarded as one of the most bike-friendly cities in America, which made it so interesting when I discovered as I was trying to head eastbound. Now, granted, there's more restrictions on scooters than bicycles. There's certain areas you're not supposed to take them. There's certain areas you literally can't leave them. It won't let you. But I really found out that even as one of the most bike-friendly cities in the world, and again, maybe everything's better on the west side of town, but it was astonishing to me how difficult it was to just go east. Over here, past east of I-205, there's bike lanes everywhere. All these major streets have bike lanes. Stark, Burnside, Gleason. Once you start getting closer to downtown, I started realizing these major streets, just stop having bike lanes. And the lanes get tight, traffic can get busy, people swerve and cut you off real closely. I've had, even just a few times I've ridden these scooters, I've had that happen a few times. People cutting right in front of you. It is astonishing how non-bicycle friendly, at least the area I went through was. And that's why my going to and coming home, the video you're seeing here is only me going to, heading west towards Portland. I didn't give video of my ride home. But you'll see over the course of this, you'll see, like, I get up to a busy intersection, or a busy street, a street that probably should have at least something for bicyclists, and there's nothing there. So I ended up spending a lot of time on side streets, weaving between busy streets, because that was the only way I could get eastbound. I literally wanted to just stay on Stark. I would have had to move north a little bit because you start getting towards Mount Tabor and you're not supposed to take the scooters up there. So I was going to kind of move over to Burnside and just kind of take Burnside for a while, or Gleason streets. But neither one of them have bike lanes for a very long distance. And so it started turning into this weaving around thing. So you need to be prepared. If you're going to get on one of these scooters, don't just assume, at least if you're on the east side like me, don't assume that because this is Portland and we love bicycles and we have bike lanes all over the place, don't assume you're going to have just a clear run right down any given busy street, unless you're one of those people that's okay just shooting out in traffic and hoping some lunatic with an axe to grind with scooter riders or bicyclists, or some lunatic who can fly off the hat over the most, random of things, like a scooter getting in front of them and slowing them down. If you want to go out there and take that risk, that's fine. I'm not going to do that. Not in this city. So just be prepared to have to kind of, make sure you got a map app available to you so you know where you're going. I know they have kind of a map thing online, but I prefer to just open Google Maps or whatever, because you may need to be prepared that if you want to maintain your safety and not just be out there to be hit in traffic, you may need to be prepared to go off on a bunch of side streets. And I was just doing the best I could, trying not to run up too high of a bill. I was hoping it would be about a 25-minute ride. It ended up being a 40-minute ride. I was hoping it'd be about $7-8. It ended up being like $12 because I kept having to change my direction. And finally I hit Northeast Hancock, which is the main street I'm on for the last several minutes of this video. So I finally it was right after I passed Sandy, which was, any intersection along Sandy is crazy because the streets in Portland mostly go east and west, north and south, but Sandy cuts diagonally through all of them. So yeah, be prepared to adjust your travel plans, and don't get mad when suddenly you have to veer off this way or veer off that way, and all of a sudden you have to stop and be like, I don't know where I'm going all of a sudden. And again, as I said before, like this stuff ain't cheap. So know that going in. You're paying $1 every 3.5 minutes. It's not even distance. It's based on time. So know where you're going. Know that when that scooter turns on, the clock is going. Get on there and get going. Don't drive like a maniac, but just know that you are on the clock. Again, like a lift, taking a lift home from where I work, which isn't too far. Getting a lift from work home to where I live right now would probably cost $9-10 to do that. If I was to take a scooter from near the old folks' home next to where I live, which is usually where you can first find them, it'd probably be about between a 15 and 20 minute ride, but probably closer to being a 20-minute ride to get from that area to where I work, or where I'm currently furloughed from. So 20 minutes, that's about $6. So, it's a little bit cheaper. And again, that's if you have a straight shot. You don't have to keep changing your direction a lot. It's not, it's not really all that affordable. And unlike taking a ride share, you're doing the work yourself. You're riding yourself, which I mean, I enjoy more anyway. But again, just be prepared. It may sound like nothing. Oh, 29 cents a minute, that's nothing. And then you're scootering around for a while and you're like, okay, I'm done. You stop and you've got a $15 bill to pay. And you're like, wow, where did that come from? And I'm like, that's how fast time goes. But that's mostly it in terms of the, not even negatives, maybe more the criticisms that I have is it can be a rough ride. It ain't cheap. And you got to be ready to think on the fly and maneuver yourself. But I still really enjoyed the rides. I felt like, and again, some of these scooters have just had the crap beat out of them. There's very few of them that don't just have scuff marks all over them because people joyride with them, they stunt ride with them. I've seen teenagers crash and burn on these things. And I know some people would just break into them and steal stuff out of them because I've again, the first few times I tried to ride one, literally the cap or like the thing that shows the mileage, how fast you're going, those would just be ripped off and there'd be just bare wires sticking out. So people do mess with these, but even having said that, these things are pretty steady. One of the things I really like is for how thin they are, there's like girth to them. You don't feel like you hit a little bump or a little crack in the road that it's just going to bounce up and throw you to the ground. The wheels, there's obviously a wheel in the front and a wheel in the back. They're kind of thick and meaty, so they don't kind of squish in when the ground kind of changes. They just kind of bounce off of it sharp. And, if you hit a crack in the ground or a little divot, you don't go bouncing around, which would freak someone like me out. You just kind of go off of it. You can even, not that I'd recommend it, but you could even go over like like railroad tracks, like where they cross, the Max tracks cross like on Burnside. You can take it across those and you just kind of gyrate a little bit. They're very well grounded, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And they maneuver really great. Once I got a little bit more comfortable with them, I got a little bit more comfortable like taking corners a little tight. Of course, making sure that nobody was coming around the corner. And that's something else too. They say this on the app, like know your zones so that you're not riding somewhere you shouldn't be, or so that you won't do what I did the other day, which you'll see in another video I did where I videoed myself going down treacherous 122nd in northeast and southeast Portland on one of these scooters. I ended up trying to leave it in a place that was like a no drop-off zone. So I ended up literally having to turn the whole thing around and backtrack like, 10 blocks because I literally couldn't leave the scooter there. So know your zones, because after only 2 times, I already screwed that up. They also say, make sure you check the brakes on these things, because these things are meant to go 15 miles an hour. That's kind of the standard. Now, the one that I had when I went on 122nd would hit 16 regularly. But when I started going downhill, where 122nd goes under I-84, because I was going downhill, I hit almost 22 miles an hour. And that's a little freaky, especially since I was in kind of a tight space. But just that's the thing. It's like, you start going downhill, you just got to be just like you're riding your bicycle. You got to know that if you need to slow down, you can. And I like the brakes on these scooters because they definitely lock pretty quick, but they don't lock hard. They don't thrust you to a quick stop, because if they did that, every time you had to stop remotely quick, you'd kind of like jilt forward and you might risk just falling forward and going face first into the handlebars. Also, while we're talking about safety, you're required to wear a helmet when you ride these, for your safety. Not that I rarely ever see anybody. Whenever I see anybody riding these Lime scooters, maybe 20-30% of the people I see are actually wearing a helmet. I wear one because it's required, but more importantly because it's for my safety. you know? You never know. Don't be cocky. You never know when someone's going to accidentally swerve, or you're going to have to swerve, or you might just have to, you know, take a crash and kind of bite it into something to keep from getting hit by a car or going into a wall. You have to be prepared for stuff like that. Don't just assume you can get out of any situation, because those are the people that get messed up, unfortunately. So that is, well, at least my initial impression, first experience out riding on these scooters. They can actually be quite a bit of fun, but if you're worried about your money and you're worried about getting to a certain place on time, it might be a little bit more stressful than you planned. Also, one thing that sucks, but I can kind of understand it, the battery life is not fantastic. Both scooters I got on this first day were fully charged. According to the scooter, according to the Lime app that shows the battery levels of each individual one, so you don't pick up one that's already dead. Both of those scooters were fully charged, full batteries. And the first one died on me pretty much completely. You'll notice by the end of this video, the last little bit, I start slowing down. And I honestly thought that because I was passing a school, I honestly thought that maybe there's something that forces the speed abilities down on the thing because you're passing by a school, which was kind of a dumb thing to think. But I was like, I don't know. But yeah, no, it was just the battery was dying. So I ultimately pulled off a block further down and had to walk the rest of the way. And yeah, the scooter I took going back home, it was about a 42-minute ride, and my battery was on fumes the last, 6-7 minutes. I'm kind of amazed it kept going. So if you're planning on doing a really long trip, you need to do a 10-mile trip across town, be prepared for the very strong likelihood that one scooter is not going to get you all the way there. It's not. That's probably my last thing to say, is that you got to be prepared for that. You got to be prepared that the thing's going to die on you after about 40 to maybe 45 minutes. And that's how this video ended, was with this go-kart. God, I'm dumb. This e-scooter dying on me. So, yeah, that's it for my first adventure. I just thought I'd lay down my thoughts about the scooter while showing you me trying to get across town best I could. So remember, as always, to like, share, subscribe, hit up my Patreon. And till next time, I'll let you guys watch here as the scooter slowly dies on me. This has been Steve the Amateur Historian, and I'll see you next time. Blocks to go. So this is not the best. Okay. So you're supposed to have it out of the way. Okay. That was probably a lot of money.